Good evening and welcome to the Lake Area Conservatives Club. This is the Camden County Sheriff's Department Candidate Forum, and we want to thank everybody for taking the time to come out tonight. We think the Sheriff's Department in Camden County is a very important organization in our community, and we have several candidates here tonight that took the time to come out. They want to share their vision and where they want to see the Sheriff's Department go in the future. So we want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight. The first thing I want to say is I want to thank Osage Hills for allowing us to use their church and their facility, their sound equipment. I also want to thank Bill Munhausen and Nancy Stewart for getting here earlier today. They helped set up the sound equipment in the venue, and I appreciate those folks coming out. They're both members of the Lake Area Conservative Club. And I want to thank Lake TV for taking the time to come out and record this event so it can be played back on the television. We think it's important that this particular forum get out to the community. Again, I want to thank you for coming tonight. I think it's very important that you're here, and I'm real appreciative of the crowd. To my left, you have Sheriff Dwight Franklin, who's the current incumbent, Camden County. You have Dan Cable. You have Johnny Payne. John Page, who's a former sheriff of Camden County. And we have Eddie Emery. And we also invited Connie Lotharp, and she did not respond back tonight, so I just wanted to make it clear we did invite all the candidates to this event. The way the forum's going to work is we're going to start off with questions for each candidate, and they're going to have the sufficient amount of time that they need to respond. And then what we'll do, we will go at the end of the question and answer, or the question period, we will go into allow the candidates to make a 7 to 10 minute response in terms of why they want to be the next sheriff of Camden County. If we get into the follow-up question segment, I only ask that you keep your follow-up question brief, keep it professional and to the point, and let's just have a good time and make this an educational time so we can make an educated decision on who we want for the next sheriff of Camden County. And you guys want water before we start? You good? Okay. We'll start off the first question tonight. This is for Sheriff Page, since this particular one was directed to him. And the question to you, Mr. Page, is do you currently have the 500 signatures to campaign for sheriff? And if not, are you still allowed to campaign?
No, I do not have all my signatures. I do not have all the signatures as they have not been turned in. I have until June 30th. It is my understanding from the Ethics Commission, yes, I can campaign.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and we'll just go on down the line with the same question, will be to Dwight Franklin. What are the thoughts of the candidates in respect to lying to a suspect? Doesn't that go against acting in an honorable or dishonorable and unethical manner?
Cliff, thanks for having us here tonight. I appreciate it, and the Conservative Club. In fact, lying to a suspect, that's been something that the Supreme Court had ruled that investigators are allowed to do. I guess if you stay within a certain bounds, but you are allowed to tell them a lie and tell them a story, and sometimes that's the only way you can get information from some of these suspects, and not necessarily might be the best way, but may be the only way. I guess you can.
Dan, same question to you. Do you need me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
Good evening, and thank you, and this is a great crowd. It's great to be here. Yes, lie, lie, lie. I have done it many times as an investigator myself, and I will do it again as your sheriff. You have to understand something. You have to use every tool at your resource, and that is one of the tools. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Johnny Payne. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. On that question, yes, can we do it? Are the days gone that we do it? I believe so. Everybody watches TV nowadays. I'm straightforward on it. So, no, do we do it? No.
It's been something that's been done for a long time. It needs to be used as a last resort within the investigation, not at the beginning of it. and it needs to be under a controlled atmosphere so that we know that the individual's rights are not being violated.
I would also like to thank everybody for coming out and giving us an opportunity to come up here and show ourselves. I agree with these guys. It's a tool that we've used before. We will continue to use it. We're police officers. Sometimes we've got to go to the fullest extent to get what we need for prosecution or to help a victim out. And yes, we'll continue to use it if I'm your sheriff.
Any brief follow-up questions to that, to any of the statements? Okay. We'll start Eddie down here with next question with you. What do you think is the most important issue facing the Sheriff's Department at the lake today?
I think one of the most pressing issues is the way that we're viewed on how we interact with the citizens of Camden County. We've got a lot of good deputy sheriffs. We've got a lot of good programs, but I don't believe that we have gotten the path or the goals set out in front of us to really give us the drive we need to get there. We need to get everybody on the same page and head them in the direction that we need to go in.
I think the main thing would be community involvement, getting the community involved with the department and the department involved with the community. Get back to community-oriented policing. We have towns and villages that have issues that are not always criminal, but they need to be dealt with, and that's why the community officer, resource officer issue was brought up during the sales tax and is a good program that worked very well.
Johnny?
I too think community policing is a good thing. I think we have a lot of new deputies. The small communities don't know them. I believe the Sheriff's Department is going to be kind of like a business. I think the customer service is kind of lacking now. And if you got a business with bad service, you're not going to have a business.
I've got a vehicle parked out there that says time to put the Sheriff's Department back into the community. It's gone. It's not there. Credit to John Page in 2007. He got out here and he campaigned and worked hard, and he got a half-cent sales tax. And you know how this kills me, folks. He did what he said he was going to do. He put 4 officers in the schools: Stoutland, Max Creek, Climax Springs, and Sunrise Beach. The next year they was gone in 2009, and they have not been back. They will be back, but they're not there right now. That is community. The church is a community. The post office is community. The store is community. These places in the outlying area look to the Sheriff's Department as protection, and it is not there. I've talked to the mayors. They are lacking. They look, and they're not receiving. So we need to go back to the communities. We're only strong in the law enforcement as our communications is to the people to receive information back from them.
I disagree wholeheartedly with that. The officers are out there. The problem that we've had since I took office is the budget. Money's not there to finance it. We've had to cut a lot of areas, but we have not cut salaries or have not laid anybody off. The problem drives the county is the money, and the revenue is not there to finance those issues. And that's a problem that we've had. But our officers are out there. They're out there, I've heard, more than they have been in recent. But that is a problem with the Camden County is the revenue. And it's lacking, and we need to do something to enhance it. Thank you.
How does the revenue shortfall stop community involvement?
Well,
because if the revenue
we're down officers. through attrition, they have left, and the problem that we've had, we don't have the money to hire. We're down 4 or 5 officers. If we had the officers,
I misunderstood your answer.
okay, and that's the reason why we haven't been able to fill the positions, because of the revenue.
While we're on the subject of the budget, in a time where budgets are tight, public office holders must think outside the box with manpower and budget issues. Many can use the excuse of budget cuts, but ultimately it's the responsibility of your elected official to make the most out of your budget. If you're elected, what do you intend to do in order to maximize your budget and make your department fiscally responsible? Eddie, you want to start with that one?
First of all, whether you're dealing with a budget at home or a public office, you start getting into a crunch, you got to start trimming. You got to trim the fat. You've got to utilize your personnel, all of your personnel, to the fullest. We need to restore the reserve program, get the reserves back to where they were, and get them on the street to supplement our full-time people. In doing that, we need to create neighborhood watch groups and have those folks on the street being our eyes for us. We wouldn't expect them to take action against a criminal, but if they're on the street and they see something, they notify us. We can get the cars out there, no matter how short-handed we are, to deal with it. That's one of the many things that I would do to get us through this budget crunch.
Thank you.
Well, I went through a few budget fights over the years and issues with commissioners on budget. I realize that the economy is an issue, but there are monies that you have to fight for. There are also some state and federal monies that are available for certain types of programs, at least to supplement some of the other department areas within the county. Those would have to be chased down and attempt to work within those. You do have to work within your budgets, but you have to be able to fight for them and be able to justify your actions that you want to do on the streets.
Thank you.
I have a small business in town. I know what a budget is. A budget is a budget, is what you're handed. But we can move personnel around. I'm big on grants. I'm a school resource officer. I don't care what it takes. I want to get some officers back into the schools. But we can move stuff around. I don't need new equipment or anything. I need to get some guys, get them a little bit of pay, and get some more help.
Thanks, Johnny.
Excuses, excuses, excuses. We always hear excuses. How about multitasking? How about you have a sheriff, a chief deputy, 2 captains, a lieutenant, and 3 sergeants to drive a car back and forth to work every day and do not work the road? You spend tens of thousands of dollars on gasoline so these people can drive back and forth to work. I bet there's, 250 employees in Camden County that'd love to have that opportunity? You have a deputy that lives in Dallas County, and every morning he is picked up by somebody that lives in Branch and takes him to work. I bet everybody would like to have somebody come by and get them and give them a ride to the sheriff's, to work. That will not happen when I come sheriff. As your sheriff, I'll work a schedule. If I have to go down and work in a jail because somebody didn't show up and it makes it unsafe, I will be down there for 12 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, sheriff, you lead. You don't write memos. You don't tell somebody else to get their butt down there and do it. You go do it. And then the next time around, you tell your whoever other one, it's your turn. There will not be anybody who has a vehicle that will not be required to work the road. And there is not going to be 8 people driving a car back and forth to work. Those cars will be put to use, and there'll be multitasking. In other words, instead of 8 people got cars, only 5 people is going to have cars. That's how you tackle a budget crunch. You get out and lead up front.
We have eliminated several vehicles from the fleet. As far as lieutenant has worked the road, the captains do work. They do other jobs. We do multitask. But we're talking a big budget, 110 employees, and sometimes it's pretty overwhelming, but we're able to do that. We do a good job. We do apply for grants. We do have issues, but we do answer those issues.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions? Yes, ma'am.
Neighborhood watch. How would you guarantee that we wouldn't have a situation like they have with the Zimmerman, where you have an overzealous person that, hurts, kills someone or even hurts someone? How would you deal with that? How would you police those neighborhood watches?
First of all, under a neighborhood watch program, you don't allow people to work outside their training, their area of expertise. So you don't have to require neighborhood watch people to carry guns. You train them that if they see something, to observe it, let it go until a uniformed car gets there to handle the situation. I can't speak on half of Zimmerman because I don't know what kind of neighborhood watch he was set up with or what the situation was there. But you don't put people in the line of danger to respond to those type things. You tell them to back off, observe the situation, and we'll get a car there as quickly as we can.
But in Missouri, we still have the concealed carry law. So you could have people in your neighborhood watch that could have a concealed carry permit. You could literally have a situation like that.
That's very true. That's very true. But we could have a situation like that with just a neighbor walking down the sidewalk carrying a weapon as well.
John, do you want to address that question?
I think the only thing in answering part of that is part of that's through the training and the setup of the neighborhood watch that you don't allow certain things. There are several people that are in the 135-3 and the 5-0 crime watch have CCW. They do not carry their guns. So it depends upon the setup that you do with the particular neighborhood watch, and a part of it is training.
One thing, I've been on the sheriff's department a long time ago, and a lot of times we would find retired police officers that's actually been on Camden County, and we've got them, all over county. A lot of times we would put them in charge of them and train the people that's underneath them. So that's what we tried to do back then.
Piggyback on the other three is exactly training, make sure they're informed, keep them within the boundaries that they are set, but people can carry guns, and you just have to tell them they'll be responsible. But I've been involved with neighborhood watches for a number of years, and it's been a great deal. It's a great tool, again, till you get there, into the community. And as your sheriff, I'll probably have one in every community, and we'll try to get that back because they can be very valuable.
Yeah, I talked with the Mayor of Stoutland this morning. She's interested in getting a neighborhood watch started. It all goes back to the restrictions that they're applied to at the neighborhood watch, what they require, training, but there is liability, and I'll guarantee you there's going to be a liability with the county and the neighborhood watch.
Ma'am, you had a question? Sure. Okay. Sheriff, I think I got a question for you. Do you know what your approximate current fiscal budget is? Two-part question. And can you advise a dollar amount of the cuts that you have received from the Sheriff's Department since you took office?
It's
approximate figure.
It's $6.5 million, I believe, is what the current budget is. But that includes operations, the jail, and 911. And we've been cut nearly $1 million since I took office.
Okay. These cuts didn't occur until after you took office?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Every police and sheriff's department has their own style of law enforcement. This is a two-part question. Do you think a sheriff's department should be proactive or reactive? And with the answer to that, how do you intend, if elected, to bring your department to that standard? Eddie, you want to take that one? Okay.
Every law enforcement agency, no matter where you're at, needs to be proactive. You need to get out in the streets. You need to show your presence. You need to tell the criminals it's not going to happen here on our turf. Neighborhood watches, they're out there. They're relaying the same message. You're going to be put in positions where you've got to respond to certain stuff that you cannot plan for, but the majority of it, proactive approach, works every time.
And like Eddie said, ideally, proactive is the way you want to be. The reality in that, in a lot of cases, in a lot of situations, is you become reactive due to particular areas that get hit repeatedly within a very short time. But then when you do that and you become reactive, then you have to turn that into a proactive situation by getting the neighborhoods involved, getting the community involved, and getting your officers to be more involved in that particular neighborhood that's having the particular problem, whether it's vandalism, whether it's theft, or not. I would prefer to be totally proactive. It's a lot easier to work the streets when you're proactive and you have enough people to do it. But when you have to end up being reactive because you are short manpower or a particular situation blows up in a particular area, reactive is a lot more work and a lot more work for the officers.
I think proactive and getting the deputies out there, again, getting to know the people in the communities. I know they're understaffed right now, and anybody that's got a scanner can tell that they're just running call to call, and right now it's kind of hard to be proactive. But again, I want to figure out one way or another to get more deputies out there.
Proactive. Your definition, my definition as law enforcement officer will be different. Lieutenant Niehaus, Morgan County Sheriff's Department, predator training, 3rd grade and 5th grade. He does this to save the kids from sex offenders. I have hunted sex offenders for the last 2.5 years in Morgan County, Miller County, and Laclede County. I go after them. I understand them. Approximately 250. They run off the reservations. I go find them. Proactive. Osage Beach Police Department. DARE. Okay? Proactive. Osage Beach Police Department. $270,000 for Special Olympics. Do we understand? Lake Ozarks. Hoses and gunses, and you know all that. Raising money for CADV and other ones. You name me one program that is out of the Camden County Sheriff's Department right now is proactive in the community or is raising money for a local organization. I have 3 in mind when I come sheriff that I will implement, and one of them will be this. Proactive into schools. The officers in the schools that are going to become DARE officers. DARE will become a program to each of the schools, Max Creek, Climax Springs. Takes a little training, takes a little gumption, and it takes a little effort to get out there. You're talking about a $6.5 million budget. Morgan County is $900,000. Miller County is $700,000. They've got programs. They've got a DARE program. Does the Camden County Sheriff's Department have a DARE program for the 4 outlining? No, they don't, but it will. Thank you.
We went proactive. We went from a behavioral-based system to a performance-based system. We're teaching our officers as they come on what expected them as a deputy, the things they need, 8 different things they need to be doing to be out in the public, to be seen and do the things they need to be doing. We are very proactive, but again, if your budget has been cut like ours has been cut, I'd like to see where they're going to get the money to do it.
Any follow-up questions, folks? Yes, sir.
Can you reiterate and explain what the 8 steps are, the 8 things that the deputies are going to do?
We've asked them to get out and run traffic. We've asked them to serve civil process. We've asked them to take reports. We've asked them to take informational reports. I can't think of the other 2 off the top of my head, but there is a list of things that we've asked them to do, and they're doing them, and they're monitored to ensure that they're getting those things done.
Any follow-up questions, folks? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Good question.
They are funding this through a children having a contest out of school called Dodgeball. The money raised will go towards the DARE program. So why not? And I'll tell you, if I get to be a sheriff at a football game, I'm going to ask everybody to bring a can of food so we can put it in the local shelters to keep our food stock up. One game, one can of food, 49 cents, you can get peaches.
Also, since I've been a school resource officer, I know some of these schools in the county will chip in. My salary was paid 90% by the schools, and Camden only paid 10%. Also know the schools in the county will chip in too. On your part, I've also heard about this. Some of them called a great card. When I was on the Sheriff's Department, our number one thing was good calls. That was it. Then, if we didn't have any calls, then we went down, but we didn't get marked down. If I had 3 calls and didn't have time to run traffic, I've noticed a lot of traffic by the deputies now. So when I was there, the calls were number one.
Follow up, John?
I think that there's several ways to come up with the funding. One of us is going to be, again, fight with the county commission to get the funding. 2, it's going to be through grants. 3, there's going to be the volunteers, either whether they need to be neighborhood watch or reserves. Reserves now is not like it used to be. Reserves used to be 120 hours of training. They now have to have the same training as a deputy. They have to be certifiable. So that is an issue. It's hard to get someone to put $5,000 up front to become a reserve and not get paid for it. So there's a lot of ways that you can get people involved, neighborhoods and deputies, to get involved with the community to get it done.
We're back to the reserves. When we're in a budget crunch, we do whatever we need to do to take care of the problems or show our presence. Reserves, neighborhood watch, move our administrative people out there. As a sheriff, I believe it would behoove you to walk through your schools. You don't have to be there every day. Once a month, once a week, walk through the school, get to know the teachers, get to know the kids. That'll give them a mentor, a positive influence in their lives, which a lot of our kids in Camden County don't have. We'll overcome the budget using volunteers and the people we have on staff.
Yes, sir.
Could you have the questions, when they ask a question, talk through this mic?
You want me to talk to the mic?
No, when somebody has a question in the crowd, can they use a microphone?
Oh, sure. So you want like an Oprah format, in other words?
Do we all get cars?
Ladies and gentlemen, my personal feeling, you don't have a sheriff's department. You got a Camden County Highway Patrol. When the sheriff described a performance program, that's OPI. That's what the Missouri State Highway Patrol uses. To his benefit, he's a retired state trooper. Camden County are deputy sheriffs. They are criminal investigators. They are not traffic cops. Okay? I've been one. I was one for 14 years on my resume there. I was chief of police in Osage Beach. Radar is a lax luxury. They sit along the side of the road. I asked a sergeant the other day on a Camden County Sheriff's Department, you are getting your butts kicked in the lab. Meth labs around here, down in Morgan County and Miller County, it's 4-1, ladies and gentlemen. Camden County's sitting there. And I'm asking, why? You know, the best way is to get out there and hit it. He said, no, best way is radar. You're going to make a bus laugh, we're on radar. What have we come to? We need to turn the sheriff's department around, point it in direction, and put it where it was. To John's benefit, he did a good job. That is gone in 3.5 years. I have watched it go away. This sheriff is approaching 30 or north 30 of employees are not there anymore. There's a gentleman sitting right over there named Mike Smith, is the best criminal investigator probably in the state of Missouri. And he's not there. And you need to ask why.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I can ask a question of Dan. As a former law enforcement officer myself and someone who's very pro-law enforcement, statistically, national studies have shown time and time again that the DARE program has not significantly reduced the number of kids who experiment with drug and alcohol. Given the fact that we're in the budget situation that we're in right now and we need more policemen out on the street, where do you draw that resource from? I'm also concerned when I hear about the grants being obtained. I think with the federal budget crisis that we're experiencing, I'm anticipating that these grants are going to become less and less in the future. And my question to you would be, not just the DARE program, but where would you draw the resources to fund a DARE officer?
The funds that I would look at is just like anything. You have a budget. John Page had a budget. All the sheriffs down the road had a budget. There is a discretionary fund. John Page and Darrell Franklin, that can be $50,000 a year. That comes from civil process. That the sheriff's department can even hire a lawyer to defend himself if he wants, or he can write a check to his chief deputy to make sure he gets $5,000 or $6,000 more a year. That's happening now. So that's how I would fund the DARE, is take a few $1,000s and work with the schools and put the program to best use.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else want to address that question?
What we did in Camden, we're not DARE officers. I kind of wish we were, but the training wasn't there. But the school resource officers in Camden, we do teach the children, anybody that's got kids here. We start in first grade, we put on classes, and we teach all the way up to the high school.
I want to make a comment, if I can, on Mr. Cable's assumption that we're not making any lab arrests. Since I took office, we've more than doubled the dangerous drug arrest. We've had, in the last 6 months or a year, we've had many labs. The last thing that he commented on is because of my experience with the patrol, does he think that the criminals are riding go-karts around here? No, they're in cars and they're in vehicles. And what's the best way to make a case? If they're traveling around, is stop a car and ask questions. That's all a car stop is. The meth labs now are the one-pot method. They're in the cars, they're driving around making meth, and that's where they're going to find them. We found probably 10 in Stoutland in one house last week. We're looking at pounds of meth, not ounces. Okay. And the criminals are in cars. I don't care what Dan says. That's how they get from one point to another is vehicles. They're not being riding horses or anything like that. So we've encouraged our officers to get out and make the car stops and do the traffic.
Okay. Thank you. Want to add something, John?
Yeah, you mentioned grants maybe drying up, and that's true. But like when I was sheriff in the past, there are foundation grants, which are private monies, and we did some of that. We did a lot of interacting with the POA to try to get things done. So there's money there for that. There's also the Elks, the Moose, and the civic organizations of the community that will all have drug programs within them, Rotary, all of them. So, I mean, there are funding mechanisms to get some of that done that are still technically grants and are still shown in the budget under the grant item. So,
okay, thank you. Eddie?
First of all, one of the biggest things that we've got to realize is a lot of grant money has to be paid back, or you've got to have matching funds to match what they're giving you. Okay. I don't really see that we have to have a per se DARE program. Okay. We can get their curriculum. We expect our deputies and police officers to be outstanding citizens and lead pretty good lives. We don't need curriculum to teach children to stay off drugs. Talk to them kids. We've experienced what they're going through as teenagers. Get down on their level and tell them that. Interact with them. And you'd be amazed what that would do to a kid to turn them around. So Yeah, DARE program's a great thing, but we don't per se have to have a strictly DARE program where we have to send people off for extensive training and that sort of thing. We can do it, wouldn't cost a dime extra.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hold on 1 second, please. We gotta get to Oprah. There we go.
The DARE program is something that is dear to my heart. I am a psychiatric nurse, and I was speaking to Mr. Page the other day regarding bath salts. The danger to our children are not only illegal drugs now. Now they're coming to us after having weeks of psychosis, sometimes this is permanent brain damage, and saying, I had no idea that bath salts could cause this. Nobody told me. They're doing the legal stuff is what they're calling it, synthetic cannabis and bath salts. I think that it's very important that we put this into our schools. I'm wondering how you all feel about these new drugs that the kids are getting a hold of.
You want to take that first, Dwight?
It's scary. I mean, the synthetic drugs, the bath salts that's being ingested in our children, it's scary. We've come across some of that, but there's no guidelines that say what's illegal or what's legal. They'll change a molecule in the chemical, and then that turns it legal. So it's an issue that needs to be addressed. The legislatures have tried, but it's a serious curse on our kids.
Dan?
K2, K3, bath salts, that's names given to them. There is, like Black Mamba and stuff. It's synthetic THC, concentrate. People say THC, oh, a little marijuana. Marijuana today is 25 times more potent than it used to be, say, in my day as a kid growing up. The danger is that who's educated on it? We got a young lady here called bath salts. That's excellent. How many here have a family member or something in the bath salt? What we got to understand is education, education, education. And that education has to come to the Sheriff's Department, to Stoutland, to Max Creek, to Climax Springs. And you do it to DARE officers, and you got to push it, push it, push it. One generation, 2, 3, there is nothing there. So it is killing. I work Lake Ozark on the strip on Friday and Saturday nights. I see hundreds of kids wanting to get high. That's what it's all about, these young kids. I want to get high. Alcohol, abuse, she's run on to it. We have to educate the public, and we have to educate the kids. And it's a long, you go after the head, and you go after the education.
Johnny?
When I said we teach, I see one school resource officer here. Sometimes the school doesn't like what we teach. Sometimes it's a little graphic. But we invite the parents to be with us when we do teach about the new drugs. And we're open to the school, but we do teach about what's illegal and illegal at Camden.
Well, I can probably say I'm the one that actually brought DARE to the first DARE program to the Lake of the Ozarks, and it was my wife that was a trained officer. But it doesn't have to be DARE per se. What it has to do is you have to have the officers in the schools interacting with the children. You have to have the school interacting with the officers so that that training can be done. There are people that know about the bath salts, synthetic drugs, and those are an issue. But the other issue that we talked about the other day was the fact that the prescription stuff that is getting well out of hand. And I think that needs to be a concentration. And we got to teach the kids this, the self-esteem. Because if they have the self-esteem, they have something to do, then they will do it and they won't do the drugs. And that's been proven.
Thanks, John. Eddie?
I agree, it's education and interaction. There's one other step that we have got to do as parents, as teachers, as law enforcement agencies. We need to find the people that's selling this stuff. Because you're right, one molecule, you can sell it. Before they could even make laws against it, they're already changing the molecules, you can sell the stuff. We need to get in there and find out who's selling this stuff to our kids. Go in and buy a package of it get it to an officer, we'll get it to the lab, we can test it. And then maybe, with that being done, then we can come back and serve those fine folks with an eviction notice.
Any follow-up questions, folks? Okay.
Yeah.
Oprah? You're my Oprah, babe.
How are you going to afford sending that to the lab?
We call it a budget. It's evidence. Someone seizes this substance. You can sit on it and not send it to the lab and let it continue to be sold throughout the community or given to the kids, or you can spend the bucks and get it done. I really don't know right off the top of my head what the cost to run it through a state lab would be, but I don't think it would be as much as what the problem is costing us already.
But if it's not illegal, why waste the time with it?
Next question is,
It depends. The bath salts could be illegal, but there's no protocol, there's no standard, there's nothing yet said in the Highway Patrol lab to test it against it. So if it's not illegal, it's hard to do anything with. You're spinning your wheels on a lot of this.
Well, I happen to know it is illegal. House Bill 641 passed in 2011 that made it illegal. And part of the reason whenever I was working for Lynn Creek Police Department is we held trainings for officers to tell them the legalities and the non-legalities for it. That was part of an approach to the community, to get it out in the community and let them know that this, in fact, is either legal or it's not illegal, and this is what you can do to keep your family members away from it. This was one such thing that was done through Lynn Creek Police Department in a town hall meeting that we invited everybody to, that nobody from the Sheriff's Department had decided to attend to. You know, I've always been told that training was important. Can you tell me how many of your officers have been trained on the detection of this? And the other thing about it is the Missouri Safety Center does offer these programs. They offer the programs to identify what the synthetic cannabinoid or the synthetic stimulant is. And they also offer you information to send to Penn State to let them test it for free. So I guess my question is why haven't you sent your officers this training to give the exact same information that I have?
is this directed to the sheriff?
This is directed to the sheriff and everybody else on the panel.
Okay. Well, you want to answer that, Dwight?
We have sent our officers certain training, but it's a hard case to prove, and you waste a lot of time trying to get something into court and get something through the prosecutor that there's not been any standard set on. And we've talked to the prosecuting attorney, and there's issues that he's concerned about that you can't make a good case on it. So if you can't prove it's illegal, they may say it's illegal, but if once you tested it and doesn't test out to be illegal, it's not illegal.
Do you want to address that, Dan?
If you don't try, nothing gained, nothing lost. That's a shot in the dark, ladies and gentlemen. It's against the law. Read the law, then train your officers. He says that he has doubled the meth lab seizures down there. I've got some information right straight from my Missouri State Highway Patrol that says in 2009, Camden County didn't even take down one meth lab. That's from the Missouri State Highway Patrol. In 2010, 2. 2011, 5. Let me tell you something. You've got 45 and 23, respectively, Morgan County. John Page is on here, too. He took down 44 in 9 years. Morgan County took down 131. Miller County took down 132. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Drug stop at the Camden County line? And let me tell you, your sheriff, I'm kicking the doors in. I'm going after them. Your little thing there, I know what's going on in the drug business, and it's not good. It is destroying our society. Unless you have a proactive sheriff's department willing to go after it, you're going to run in our budget. Well, you know, the law says Go out and do it. Learn it, do it. I've done it, and it can be done.
I'm like you on the training. There's a lot of free training out there. The Highway Patrol puts on training. A lot of the police department's on a tight budget right now. There's no reason to send one guy, get him certified, bring him back, and have him teach the whole sheriff's department. As you know, if you're off 2 weeks, you can come back and a drug is now illegal or legal, back and forth. But I'm like you, training is it.
I'm going to take one statement that Dan made, and I think it is something that some people need to understand in dealing with methamphetamines like I did for the number of years that I did. There are a lot of dealers in Camden County, okay? There ain't no doubt in my mind about that, always has been. But a lot of the manufacturing are going on in the smaller rural counties because there's a lot of space between one house and the next house. So that is something that changes some of those numbers as far as number of labs. But with the new methods, it is extremely hard unless you do the traffic stop or you catch them manufacturing the stuff in the single bottle. But the other problem is not just methamphetamines. It's some of the other drugs. It's the synthetics. It is also the amount of number of parents that allow their children to drink, which the drinking then leads to the Oxycontin and some of the other drugs that are in the house because they want that high. We got to do the education at the lower levels and get into the schools with the kids, the teachers, and get that done on that level to start with. That is one thing that does need to be done again.
Training is the key to everything when it comes to our jobs. Legal or illegal. Some of it probably is illegal, the way they've got it packaged. Or maybe the substance that's in that package or supposed to be in that package. But whether it's legal or illegal, you talk to your kids, you talk to those parents, find out where your kids are going and getting this stuff. And whether it's legal or not, if it's bad for the kids, you don't send your kids into a bar, right? So you can educate the parents. I'm not talking about having groups to storm the place and burn it down, but you can curb their business a little bit. You curb their business and their sales, they're not going to make overhead, and they'll eventually move somewhere else.
Thank you. Dan, if I could have a follow-up question to the stats you just cited. I'd like to know, are there any mandatory reporting procedures where the Sheriff's Department, if they have a drug arrest, meth or whatever, where they automatically report it to the Highway Patrol, and how would the Highway Patrol otherwise know?
Yes, there is a method here every year. The state of Missouri releases something like this here. It shows the state of Missouri. It shows 114 counties. Then it shows how many meth labs. Okay? The state of Missouri has led in meth labs across the nation. We're real proud of that, ain't we? Okay, let's be proud of that, okay? Let's have excuses, the budget's cut and everything, so let's just keep being number and have number one. I'd like to be number 2, 3, 4,
But
5.
how does what are the reporting procedures from the Sheriff's Department in terms of, to assume these numbers are accurate, and we'll assume that they are, what are the reporting procedures that where the Sheriff's Department reports to the Highway Patrol, and how do they do that?
Okay, when you get a form, and you fill it out, and you send it in, just like the uniform code that you send to the FBI every year is how many burglaries, murders, sex assaults, and rapes that you have. You send it in so they can calculate it, okay? This is what did, and it's calculated on this. I do not have 2020 and 12 because it's new. They've taken down about 3 or 4. But there is a process that it is.
Okay, thank you. Would you enforce the current laws against groups who are obviously breaking the law by creating a public health hazard, impeding commerce, and otherwise making a nuisance of themselves and their activities? For example, the Occupy Wall Street mobs. If so, why do you think the laws were not enforced in New York City and elsewhere?
Well,
you want me to take you last on that question?
I think I've got it.
Okay.
As your sheriff's office and your sheriff, we will enforce the state statute, the federal laws if we need, and our local ordinances. We're from Missouri. What they do out there, fine and dandy. That's the way they want to roll. Okay? We have situations happen in our county all the time. Not we're having riots or people laying around on people's lawns, unless it's after a holiday weekend. And we deal with that, but we deal with that just like we do everything else. We use common sense and training, and we usually end up winning.
I'm going to agree with Eddie on part of that, and that is what they do on the East Coast and the West Coast is there. I don't think we've ever followed the trends of the East Coast or the West Coast, at least as long as I've been here since '81. I do think that you as a property owner have a right. I've demonstrated that over the years. I think that's where a lot of that comes into that needed to be enforced in New York, California. It was property rights. It was the city's property. It was private property in some cases. So as sheriff, I've always enforced the individual laws for the individuals, the property owners, and that's something that I will continue. I think there's a lot of those laws that need to be changed and made better for the property owners. Fencing laws, which has not been touched since the 30s in any way, shape, or form, and somebody comes in from California and buys 5 acres and puts up his fence, and just because he knows where the property line's at and didn't have it surveyed. Those are issues that deal with property rights, and they are important and always have been to me.
Thank you. Johnny?
I would like to think in Camden County that most of the citizens would follow the law on protesting. I have worked for Capitol Police, and if you want to see protesters, go up there. We've got a few rules for them to follow, and as long as they follow the rules, they can protest all they want.
East Coast, West Coast, they say they're about 20 years ahead of us. It's all political out there. It's what I want to do. In the heartland, which we are God-governed because we believe in God, country, and family. And it's about protecting our family. And as a sheriff, I will protect the families. I will protect the property of those people. Nobody has a right to violate you in any manner. And understand is that, again, your officers have to be trained to understand the law. And if it comes down to it, I think John faced a few concerts here, and he was well prepared because he got the training. I keep saying, John, man, the man toasted me when I was up there. But I know he does. See there, a little relaxed, a little laid back, and never heard
Would you like
anything.
a yard sign?
But let's understand, you come first because the law is to protect you. You pay, you should receive because the Sheriff's Department belongs to you.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dwight.
Well, hopefully we don't have to do anything. Hopefully they don't show up down here. That's the best thing we can hope for. But if they do, we'll arrest who needs to be arrested. We'll put in jail who needs to go to jail. And we'll do the things we need to do to protect the citizens of Camden County, whatever that may be.
Okay. Any follow-up question, folks? Mr. Cable, got a question for you. Why do you keep bringing up Miller and Morgan counties, and this is Camden County?
Okay, Miller and Morgan County are part of the Lake of the Ozarks. Okay? We are joined together because we make up the nucleus. Camden County is 2/3 of the lake. We are a first-class county. Miller and Morgan are third-class counties. They are run with 9 people on their sheriff's department, and they have a drug organization. Camden County's got a drug organization called the NEG. You pay several $1,000s into it, and they go out here and do it. Probably 5 or 6 counties. Mid-Missouri Drug Task Force. They're up in Morgan County and Miller County. They take care of that up there. Holidays. It's like a regular weekend? No. Miller, Morgan, Camden. It is not a receptacle working relationship. If it was, the stats would be up. Our situation is Are we working with the other counties? We are not. Okay? I work with Miller County. Is Camden County working with them? No. Are they talking with them? No. Because they're not even talking to Lake Ozark over there. Because I work there. 40 to 50 times a year, the Lake Ozark Police Department will send a police officer out to handle one of Camden County's calls. I've done it. Or back an officer up. Are they receptacle? St. Patrick's, 13,000 people. Nobody from the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff Franklin, I think this question is directed to you. Less than 2007-8, why are deputies still making starting pay after several years of service? You might want to write this down because this is gets a little lengthy. That's the first question. And the second question would be is where is the money? The first one was why are deputies still making starting pay after several years of service? Where is the money? And if the commissioners are the problem, why haven't we made that public?
First of all, Sheriff's Office, we have to work with the commissioners. It's a budget issue, and we have to, sometimes it's if the money's not there, we have to take what we get and use it to the best way we can. Starting pay, we've increased that due to the Deputy Sheriff Supplemental Pay Fund. Went from starting pay is $26,600, it's now $28,000, and we got all the deputies a pay raise this year. So the pay raise has come, but the problem is where the money is. The money is not being generated through the revenues that's submitted through the Camden County. The money's not there, and if it's not there, we can't spend it. It has been done in the past, and that's what the problem is. When I took office, the first thing they wanted to do was cut hours on our people and lay a bunch of people off. We didn't do either one. We kept our people. We kept the salary what it was, and those things I'm proud of doing.
Does anybody want to follow up with that while we're here? Dan? You know you're not the sheriff. You might have some insight on this possibly. Why are the deputies still making starting pay after several years of service? And where's the money? And if the commissioners are the problem, why haven't we made that public?
Anytime you have a budget and it has to be finalized, I think by 5th of January, it has to be finalized in a first-class county. After that, you can move money around, not in wages, but you can move around in surpluses and stuff like that. Now, the wages, I have no control over. But if it is, the jailers get the first pay raise. Them people are down there with them criminals, hardcore, and they make the least. My heart goes out to them. Then the road officers. Now, where's the money? He does what he wants with the money, per se, if you want it out. 10 brand new high-performance Tahoes, $30,000 vehicles, run 140 miles an hour, two-wheel drive. What happened to four-wheel drive? Why are we spending $30,000 when you could have went out here and buy Fords for $25,000? Get, all right, high performance, but they're four-wheel drive will better serve the people in the wintertime, because we got winters around here to contend with. This is my thinking. This is in the budget. This is what, $300,000 leasing for cars? But my heart goes out to the jailers. Those people work in danger 12 hours when they're on a ship. And I think about them all the time.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to address that?
The Tahoes were actually cheaper than the Crown Vics. They had better gas mileage. We're hoping the resale on them when we turn them in will generate more of a revenue. Dan is not right on his figures as far as $30,000. They were cheaper than a Crown Vic. That's the reason why we went to Crown Vic or Tahoes. We think they'll hold up better on the lake roads. They're on a truck chassis. We looked at it. We looked at every vehicle there was, and we made a good, conscious decision. And for the county, we're good. We tried to be good stewards with the county money.
Johnny, do you want to address that?
Yes. Again, I see a lot of ex-deputies out here. Camden County is the lowest paid agency around. I thought Camden City was until I started there and started talking to some deputies. They're definitely the lowest paid. Most of the deputies are trying to get second, third jobs, trying to catch up. There's got to be a way to pay them better.
John, you want to address that? Can I ask you a question before you start, though? Were any of those Tahoes purchased prior to you leaving office? Okay. I didn't know if it was a grant that was, from some time ago or not.
I think the first Tahoes that were purchased were the traffic grant, or the first Tahoes that showed up were traffic grant, which
Department of Public Safety.
right. That grant started under me and then didn't finally get finalized until Dwight had taken over.
Okay.
The deputies are underpaid. I've helped on a campaign to get a sales tax passed. Of course, no one could predict that the economy was going to do what it did. I still think that there is a viable fight and argument with the county commissioners over that issue. And so that is something that needs to be addressed, in my opinion. What was the second part of the question there?
Where's the money? And if the commissioners are the problem, why haven't we made that public?
I've used the word fight several times. I don't have a problem with that. A part of it is, it's a working relationship, but it is also a standing up to the demands of what the other departments want. And I've also faced other elected officials who were not very happy with what I got in my budget versus what they got in theirs. So it is a fight, and it's a continuous one, and you got to fight for your people, and that's what I've done in the past with the sales tax and got them up to where they were, because they were at 21 at one point not too long ago.
Okay, thank you. Eddie, you want to address the question?
First of all, I'm not going to stand here and try to tell you where the money is. I don't know. Okay. Number two, I wanted to clarify a couple things. Number one, the raise that we did get, and we are appreciative of that, okay, because I'm one of the deputies that survive with my wife and kids on that salary. That is done. It's set up like a grant, okay? So this month, or for the next 6 months, I believe it is, we could have ourselves a $100 a month raise. Excuse me. Now, if we turn in the paperwork for the next go around and we don't get that grant, then the raise is gone. So this is kind of like a gamble. Now, this is something that came from the civil process of papers. John worked on it, Sheriff Franklin worked on it, Chief Waldron worked on it to get this money through. It's hit three or four lawsuits because St. Charles County, being a richer county, more money, they think it's unfair that that money would go to somebody like Camden County or a county that's worse shape than we are. Now, with having budget crunches and not having enough money, sometimes you got to think out of the box. You've got to get creative, okay? We as citizens are responsible, or we should pay our fair share for the protection of by the sheriff's office or local police departments. We need to start working with the courts and the county commission to start getting in the pockets of the people that cause our problems, our criminals. If we have to go out and serve warrants, spend hours trying to track them down, then the courts, the sheriff's office, and the commission working together, maybe we can do something to get into their pockets and reimburse the sheriff's department back for that expenditure. It's worth a try. Okay. Under my administration, we will work with the commission and the courts and the prosecuting attorney, and we'll turn that tide back to the people that causes us the most trouble. Let it go to costing them, and maybe they'll take their business on back to Miller County or Morgan County.
Thank you. Follow up. Hold 1 second. Oprah.
Eddie, you mentioned that you spend time serving warrants. Do you feel that there would be fewer warrants if there were fewer cash bonds and you would allow the bondsman to continue to do their job by going and picking out up their fugitives after the bond has been posted, and alleviate the cost to the Camden County Sheriff's Department, because bondsmen will pick those people up at no charge to the community.
Counties allowing bondsmen to pick up their own bonds is a great thing. There's been trouble with that, though, in the past. So I think it's something that we would have, as a sheriff, we would sit down with the bondsman and the prosecuting attorney, and if we could come to a common goal or a common a line that the bondsman, okay, we're not going to cross that, then I don't see a problem with that. That's going to save the county a lot of money.
John, you want to address that?
Bondsman picking up bondees, no problem with it, as long as it's done legally, and we know, where some of the issues are there. But I think that one of the things that we have to be aware of is, as we grow, the numbers for the jail and the numbers of criminals increase, and has over the past 10 years drastically. And so that is one of the issues that has created a lot of the problems, is that we have these people that come in here and abuse our county. And so consequently, there end up being warrants on them. And a lot of those outstanding warrants they're in St. Louis, they're in Kansas City. And so some of them are never going to be cleared. But the ones that are here, they do cost us money to get. Eddie referred to the basically restitution fund, which can be done. The courts and the 26th Judicial has not been real receptive in the past when I was there of doing the restitution fund, because they felt it was someone paying for their crime to get out of it. Really, it's not. They're paying their cost back to the county, and it's something that needs to be looked at and done.
Thank you. John, you want to address that?
We've had the same bonding for the last 30 years. I just heard tonight there's a different way to bond, and they have changed the policy on that. I'd like to sit down with the bondsman and see what has happened.
Dan?
A bondsman has wide range authority. He can kick a door down without a search warrant, go in there, grab them, throw them in the truck, and take off. That's a bondsman for you, and he has the right to do that. Okay? As your sheriff, am I going to take my chief deputy, jump in the car with a Camden County credit card, drive to Phoenix, Arizona, pick up a prisoner, and drive back on your dime? No. John Page had implemented a program where he farmed that out. Get them, bring them to him. You don't have the liability on your officers doing all that traveling on the road. You don't have liability of accidents and stuff like that. Bondsmen can put up money or they can put up property. Okay. Either way. They can do it either way. And they are recognized by the court. Gives them authority to do that.
Okay, thank you. Dwight?
If it's done in a manner that doesn't violate anyone's civil rights, or they stay within the boundaries, sure, that would be a good way to do it. But we want to make sure we stay within the boundaries that they're allowed to follow, and not violate somebody's. What happens if they kick the door in and it's the wrong person? It's a concern. We just can't carte blanche let people go kicking in the door.
Now, I may be wrong, but I have worked around a couple bondsmen, and they carry their own insurance. So if it's the bondsman's liability in kicking in the door, then why would the sheriff's department be worried about their liability, civil rights being violated? Because it's also my understanding, if you are bonded out, you give up and you sign away a lot of your civil rights in order to be bonded out, so they can come back and apprehend you.
That's all well and good if that's the individual they're looking for, but if it's not the individual, it's somebody else. And we've had incidents where they're twins or something, and something happens, then it's a concern.
So it can answer how the sheriff's department is liable to them.
If they're liable for just about everything. if pertaining to warrants and the service of. So, yes, it's a concern just to turn somebody loose to do that.
Quickly.
When a warrant is served and a warrant's issued and you're bonded, the sheriff's department has no more to do with it. You have no more obligation to that warrant. It's been served, bond, he's gone, you're free, you're out of it. There's no liability.
But if they fail to appear, then the warrant's reissued and you may have to go serve it.
Still no liability, money, monetarily, civil. Only thing you do, you have a responsibility as a law enforcement officer to go serve the warrant. Process starts all over again.
Okay.
The question still remains is why is the bondsman not being utilized more with the new bonding procedures that are in place? The bonds are now being ran through a credit card machine that has been placed in the jail. So therefore now, instead of the bonding company being liable for it, 100% the sheriff's department is, the liability then falls back on the sheriff's department. So the bonding company has been cut out of the money, and you, as the sheriff's department, has now become 100% liable for that bond, that bondee, and the new warrant. So it falls back. You're talking about wanting to save yourself some money. You're talking about wanting to save a little bit here, a little bit there, trim the fat. You've just created more fat for yourself by doing the bonding procedure the way that you're doing it, by having to serve the warrants. So would this be something that you would change if you were to become sheriff?
Hold on. Let's kind of get, for the sake of time, I want you guys to be able to give a final statement. Let's kind of roll through.
You want to answer this?
Yes, please.
Okay. It's something that we'd have to look at. If it's going to cost us money as the sheriff's office, and it's creating us problems, yes, we will get rid of it. But that's something that we're going to have to look at and make sure that that's going to be the point.
And I agree with Eddie. You know, it's something you have to look at. I totally agree that if it's costing the county money and depriving businesses of money, then I agree with doing away with it. So.
When was the last time you guys met as a meeting with the sheriff's department, all the bondsmen? And I've heard the same thing out of the record services too. That won't happen if I'm in there.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a little TV down there, and it runs bondsmen, and they pay monthly. Is that paid monthly? Quarterly? Okay. No. Take it out. Put a card up there. Let the prisoner have the choice of who he wants to call. You do not tell him you call that bondsman, you call that bondsman. It's not right.
The reason that's in there, the money that's generated, we purchase the televisions for the inmates. We keep up the system that works for the inmates. We make them funded, and it doesn't cost the county anything, and the money that's generated over that is put back into the budget. I mean, that's something that we come up with. Cost saving, we've done many cost saving issues there. As far as the kiosk machine or the bonding machine, that's something for convenience. If you've got somebody that needs a $200 bond, rather than try to run around and get the cash, they're able to use their credit card and get the person out without having to wait.
Quickly, the last question of the evening, and then you guys can get to your closing statements on why you would like to be the next Camden County Sheriff. If there were a law that you personally felt was outdated, get your turn. You're welcome. Would you disregard or enforce that law?
When you put on the badge, they don't ask you or tell you, okay, if you want to enforce this law, you enforce this law. If not, then that's fine, just stick it. What if we did that with drug dealers? Okay? I like you, you sell crack to all the kids up here to school, but because I like you, I'm going to put that law. I'm not going to enforce that law. No, That's not the way the ball is bounced. We pin the badge on to do a job. That's enforce the laws, okay? It's not our job to dictate what laws we're going to enforce or not. Some of them, they leave a bitter taste in your mouth. But if the system was set up to do that, you imagine what our country would be in right now.
And Eddie's right. We also take the oath to support the Constitution of Missouri and the United States, support the laws of Missouri. We also have some Camden County ordinances or regulations. Those have to be enforced. But as I have done in the past is, when you have one that's not right, you can try to change it, and in some cases you can change it, and you can work on that real hard. Whether it's survey stakes being pulled up and no penalties for pulling them up, to including CCW to where that was passed. And it's something that's important, and if it needs to be changed, worked several times on trying to get landlord rights changed, but at the same time we were trying to do that in St. Louis, landlords were being bad guys. So it's something that if the law's not right, you got to get it changed. I think that the question was pointed towards something a little more than that, but the reality of it is we do have to uphold the laws and the Constitution, as our oath says so.
Johnny?
I'll try not to talk on this too long. Most people know what happened to me with the Camden City. My biggest issue was we've got so many old ordinance laying out there that seem like when they want to enforce it, they pull them out. The ordinance on me was 32 years old, laying in the dirt somewhere. Houston, Texas, when I worked down there, they have public hangings for stealing livestock, stealing the books. Do they enforce it? No. I'm all for enforcing the law. We have a bunch of ordinance. I think Camden still has one about spitting on sidewalks. Do they enforce it? No. Right now, they're just enforcing the ones they want to.
Anybody ever heard of the people, by the people, for the people? The law's for you. Your elected officials, they go up there, they pass laws. As law enforcement officers, and you enforce it. There's judges to see if it's a good law. Black and white should be for law enforcement. Judges can get into the gray matter, and attorneys. We got any here? So, yeah, right back there. So, we have to understand, you have to work the law, and you do not have a real gray area.
You can't pick and choose the laws you enforce. You're sworn, you're obligated to enforce all the laws, everybody equally under the law, and that's what we've tried to do. Just because you don't like it doesn't mean you can't enforce it. If you don't like it, go through your legislature and change it.
That concludes the questions for this evening. We're going to go ahead and let each candidate make a 7-minute statement on why they would like to be the next sheriff of Camden County. Would you like to go first, Dwight?
Yes, that'd be fine.
I mean, we've been at this end of the table to ask several questions. I thought I'd give Eddie a break.
Okay.
So.
Thanks, Cliff, again, and thank you for having us here tonight. I'm going to go over some things that we've done during my tenure. We've balanced the budget. It's been cut without laying anybody off or cutting any salaries. We've improved training programs and procedures, also improved professionalism and ethics. We've contracted between the Four Seasons Property Owners Association and the Village of the Four Seasons to enhance law enforcement on both sides of Horseshoe Bend and Shawnee Bend. We've improved communication with Lake area law enforcement agencies by being instrumental in forming monthly meetings with law enforcement administrators. With a joint effort with the prosecuting attorney, we purchased car video systems and enhanced the evidence collection in criminal cases. We've applied for and obtained Deputy Sheriff's Salary Supplement Fund. It's a grant to increase the base salary of deputy sheriffs within the department. We had a joint effort with Camden County IT Department to purchase a new computer server for the system. It was antiquated and about to break down. Improved money handling procedures in the jail. We had computers installed in the patrol cars. We've had town hall meetings at Climax Springs, Sunrise Beach, Stoutland, Max Creek, Horseshoe Bend, and Camden. We've had jail medical bills negotiated to Medicare rates. That's just a few of the things that we've done. I'd like to ask you for your support, and thank you very much.
Daniel, go ahead and start your statement, please.
As my last words to you are, you're only going to be able to judge your candidate by how much information you receive. This information I have showed you. Anybody wants a copy, I have plenty of copies. The reason I want to be sheriff is because I love to catch criminals. It's fun. I've caught thousands. There's nothing like it. You're looking at an adrenaline junkie. There is nothing like catching a criminal, throwing him in jail, seeing him in charge, then hauling him to prison. I did it 133 times in my years, 14 years. It's a great feeling to take them to prison because you have done the community a great benefit. And the idea is you can go out there and do it again. This will be fun. I've had jobs that were terrible, not fun. This will be fun because you can surround yourself with individuals that are as much as involved in the community as you are because you can work with them. Stoutland would like to have a police officer. Max Creek would like to have a police officer. Why is a third of your law enforcement deputies out on Shawnee Bend and Horseshoe Bend and been dedicated to them? When you've got 85% more of the county is sitting there with a lot less. I would have to really think of myself and look people in the face and said, you don't get a deputy. No, everybody gets a deputy. Do it the best I can. I want to be your sheriff because it'd be fun. I want to be out there working for you, and I will be out there. This is a 24/7. This is not 9 to 5. And I love it because I've done it for years. Right here in Osage Beach, when I got to be chief of police and everything, it's a lot of achievement, a lot of accomplishment, but you can move on, and that's what we need. We need to turn the sheriff's department about, look to the future, don't go back, and go at it like the people want you to go at it. And I want to go at it that way. If anybody wants to talk to me afterwards, I appreciate it, but August 7th, I would appreciate your vote because I want to chase sex offenders. I want to make sure that sex offenders of Camden County are doing what they're supposed to do. I will personally go visit all 90 sex offenders. If I can visit 270, I can sure find 90 and tell them I know who you are, I know what you are, and you stay away from my kids because I'm going to make sure they live where they live, they drive what they drive, and they work where they work. And if there's children around, I'm going to knock on that door, show a picture of that family, and say, that's a sex offender. That is by law. I will take money out of my pocket and put every sex offender's picture in the paper, paid for myself, who it is, what his name is, and where he lives. So they can cut it out and paste it up. That is what you need to protect your children. I get very emotional because I have seen dead children that have been violated, beaten to death. And I can get riled up, and I'll go after them. Not on my watch. That's what I'll say to myself. And I want you people to understand that. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Johnny? I do got to say, you two have some pretty short statements. I was prepared to give you 7 minutes. You guys are only taking about 4.5.
Anybody knows me, I'm going to have an open door policy. Camden County's not that big. If you have a complaint, that you can't come to me. That's the way it was when I worked there. I worked under Ralph Ryder. I enjoyed working for him. He's deceased now, but he had an open door policy. One thing I'll give John over here, you never knew when he was coming in, when he was chief or sheriff. I plan on doing the same thing. I may come in on a weekend, I may come in on a holiday. You never know. It's not just to spy on the guys, it's just see what they're doing out there, and I'll go ride with them. Seems like there's a big split right now. I don't want to ride with a lieutenant or captain. I want to ride with a deputy. I want to know. He knows what's going on out there. I may not. So, and I do like what Dan said on the sex offenders. Being at the school, we are a little relaxed right now with Camden County. I'll explain that later on, but I do like his policy on that, and we do need to. So, I'm done.
I spent 16 years serving you as your sheriff. During that time, we went from a 30-bed jail to a 110-bed jail. Passed a half-cent sales tax to build that jail, as the court ordered us to build it. We let it, 1/4 of it sunset, as we had originally set out in the original tax. We built a 911 system that is as good as anybody else's as far as the mapping, locating of people, and the addressing in this county when I was sheriff. We took a department from 30 to 116. We did that with the second sales tax, in which we went out and we asked the people what they wanted before we went out with the sales tax. We then got what they wanted, and had 1/2 of that sales tax was for law enforcement to bring up those standards. We had a good department. I enjoyed doing it. I'm now bored. I've been home for 3 years. The honey-do list never gets smaller. I would enjoy serving as your sheriff again. I want to take back to the community. The community resource, community officers were a major part of the half-cent or the quarter-cent sales tax for law enforcement back in the time, and I think that they need to be back. I've had a lot of people ask me to get involved and to do something, and that's what I'm doing. And I would like to serve, and I need your support.
Thanks, John.
Why do I want to be your sheriff? I want to help the citizens of Camden County. Since I was 14 years old, I have been serving the citizens of Camden County in one area or another. I've been a fireman, held ranks as high as battalion chief, been in charge of personnel, drove ambulance, and now I'm in the law enforcement arena. We need to stay focused on our community and helping our community, our neighbors. Yeah, I want to be sheriff, but all those years I've been your neighbor. 2 o'clock in the morning, not a problem. Roll out of the bed, jump in the truck, go out for something as simple as some elderly woman having a stomach pain. Then we've responded to bigger things, condos fires. No matter what the situation, we arrive on the scene, we handle it. In my administration, we will have the community in our plan. We deal with problems, certain problems like LA and New York, and that's good. We need to be professionals. We need to be trained to handle those. But this is Camden County, for God's sakes, where everybody knows everybody. That's what we need to focus on. And we need to train our people to think that way. We need to work with our commissioners, our court systems, our area law enforcement organizations, organizations like CADV, Kids Harbor. Why? Because that's our neighborhood. That's our community. In my administration, we'll have truth and transparency. That's your office. I'm your employee. You want to talk to the sheriff? Call me. Come up. Call in and say, hey, I want you to come out to my place. I'll come out there. Day or night, it doesn't matter. I'm getting paid by you folks. I'm motivated by, the majority of our candidates up here are retired. You notice that? Retired. So unless you got self-motivation, what motivates you? I'll tell you what helps motivate me. A wife and 2 kids at home. This would be my livelihood. This would be my paycheck. Now, it's easy once you're retired, 2 o'clock in the morning, dispatcher call you up and say, hey, 2 people's been shot, Sunrise Beach. Okay, well, keep me apprised. Click, no, not under mine. I'll be there. Will I walk in and take over the investigation? No. Why we got trained investigators? But I'll walk in there and I will ask that investigator, what do you need me to do other than to stay out of your way right now? Okay? That's why I pay that man a good paycheck, to make those decisions. If he needs me to go to town to get coffee, I'll get him coffee. If he needs me to stand out there in the street and keep people out of his crime scene, I will keep the people out of the crime scene. I roll this way every day of my life when I pin the badge on and climb in a patrol car. As sheriff, that won't change. We should stop allowing our elected officials, no matter what the title is, to stroll in the office every morning, 7, 8, 9 o'clock, and then stroll right out of the office about 3 to 5. You call, you should get a call back. Somebody calls in and says, hey, I'd like to see the sheriff out at my farm. Somebody's been messing around with my machinery. You're the sheriff. They elected you. Get your hind end in a patrol car and travel out there. Okay? What's it going to take? 10 minutes? We do lockouts in this county. You know how long a lockout takes a normal officer once he gets on the scene? About 3 minutes. Would it hurt for your elected official to stop by and unlock the door of the car? If we're going to do lockouts, would it hurt for him or her to unlock the car door for your daughter or son? Or your wife? Your mother? It's common sense. That's what we're paying these people to do. I will do that. And if I don't, come to my house and tell me. You won't have to, because I'll be there. I'll be there for you if you'll be there for me. I appreciate your vote on August the 7th, and thank you.
We want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight. I want to thank you folks for coming out. We'd like to do another one of these, but I just really want an honest opinion. Did you guys find this worthwhile, and would you like to have another one? I guess what I would like to know. Because we'd be happy to arrange. We're going to have a show of hands. Okay. We'll go ahead and probably a little closer to the election. If you guys want to have another one, we'd be happy to host it for you. My name's Cliff Luber from the Lake Area Conservative Club. We're a conservative organization. We believe in less government interference in our lives. We believe in personal responsibility. If you guys are interested in finding out more about the Lake Area Conservative Club, we have a website up on the banner here. There's some cards and some information back there in the back. My wife and Nancy would be happy to talk to you folks. And again, we really appreciate you taking the time to come out. We hope you found it informative. And based on your response, we will do another sheriff's debate. And we thank you very much. Have a good evening.